Welcome. I'm Michael Bickert. Thanks for joining me today as we explore concepts with the objective of improving your management skills and growing your business. Pause the video at the beginning here so that you can grab a notepad and a pen, because each and every time I want you to commit to jotting down something actionable, some sort of action item that you will implement in your business today. That's what it's all about. We have to implement. All right. Today I wanted to talk to you about causation and correlation and the differences between those things. So I'm certain you've heard of these terms, causation and correlation, and it's important in business as in science. I think very often we associate those terms with science in the scientific community, but it's very important in business to understand the difference. So I look at causation as follows. So for something to be causative, you have to have an event or a condition, a catalyst, some sort of stimulus that results in a particular effect. Okay, so X exists and therefore Y happens. X determines Y. Whereas correlation is X and Y can exist simultaneously, but there's not necessarily any sort of causative effect. There isn't necessarily anything about one that is causing the other. There's just a correlation. So when we get to correlation, when you think about correlation, these things could be reverse causative. For example, you may notice a correlation between X and Y, and you might assume that X is causing Y when in fact it's the reverse that's true. Y is in fact causing X. Or it may be that there is no causation whatsoever either direction. It's completely coincidental. It's very important to understand this because we make decisions in business, and we certainly do in science, but you make decisions in your business that are meant to drive your strategy forward and have a desired outcome. And if you are misinterpreting data as causative when in fact it's simply a correlation, you can end up off course. And if you're off course just a few degrees over time, you are way, miles away from your goal. You're on the absolute wrong trajectory. So I like to give an example. The one that always comes to mind, it seems a little bit ridiculous as I give you this example, but it really illustrates the point. And that is the guy who says, I'm going to play basketball because it's going to make me tall. And somebody questions him. He says, well, come on, take a look. Everyone who plays basketball is really tall. Therefore, basketball makes you tall. I'm going to start playing basketball because I want to grow taller. And you could understand, obviously, playing basketball doesn't make you tall. In fact, there's a correlation there, of course, but it's not a causation. There is no cause by playing basketball that makes someone taller. If anything, the correlation is reversative, is reversed in order. In fact, it is that many tall people gravitate toward the game of basketball because they tend to excel. That's not to say every tall person excels in basketball, but it is an advantage to be tall in the game of basketball. So if there's any sort of correlation, of course there's a correlation, but it's more likely that it is tall people playing basketball than it is basketball making people tall. Of course, that's ludicrous. Another example that I use, and this one I think is almost as ludicrous, but I was one of the victims of this misunderstanding for many years, and I think that this prevails. And that is, I'm going to exercise and lift weights the way that guy over there does because look how his physique is, look how strong and muscular he is. Therefore, it must be the way he's exercising that's causing that. In fact, most often what we notice in the context of fitness, weight training, and the male physique in the gym is a genetic component. And in spite of a person doing the wrong exercises, having really an abysmal routine of some sort and making all sorts of mistakes, he still succeeds because of those genetics. So it's a correlation. And what happens is people who are genetically predisposed to get great results by lifting weights tend to lift weights more and tend to be more prevalent at the gym. And so somebody who desires those results may go in an environment like that, witness these people around them, and assume that it is what they're doing, that the activity, that the particular workout routine is causative, that is causing the results that they're looking for, when in fact it's a correlation between genetics, or there's a correlation between who's in the gym and the results that they seem to be getting. So you can apply that and think of the various examples in your business where you have these decisions you're making, and maybe you're concluding something is causative, is causation, when in fact there's only correlation. We've got to be really careful about that in business. You know, I mentioned that these terms are often associated with science, and how, you know, we can be completely misguided in science. Nutritional science is a great example where there's so much epidemiological studies that are done, and they really observe correlations, and so many conclusions are made that seem to imply causation, and recommendations are made by governments based on these studies that are very far from conclusive. And so when you think about, in the context of your business, the same sort of phenomenon occurring, you want to be careful and try to approach things more scientifically, where you don't make the mistake of a correlation being causative. And the areas in your business that I've observed that are most prone to this are those areas that are less scientific. So if we think of accounting, that's more or less, I would say, more scientific than other areas of your business, because it's mathematical and the numbers can add up. Now, there is some, you know, there are generally accepted accounting practices or principles, and there is some latitude for how an accountant will, you know, in what way they will expense things and that kind of stuff. There is some latitude. There are differences from one business and another in the generally accepted accounting principles and how they are applied at a business level. But by and large, accounting is mathematical. And so there's less room for misinterpretation of the data if you actually take the time to explore it. Yet there are a couple areas of your business, and I'm thinking of human resources and marketing, which are less scientific. They do involve trial and error and the humanities. And that's where this notion of causation versus correlation, you really want to take a close look at before you make any major decisions in your business. So let's look at human resources as an example. So if you noticed that sales were down or customer satisfaction scores were lower, and during the particular period that you were observing, you also had a new member of your team named Tim, and management or upper management may determine, I think Tim is causing a problem with sales. He's causing sales to go down and our customer satisfaction scores to go down. But it may not be the case that it has anything to do with Tim. You'd have to dig in much deeper. There's so many moving parts to your business. And these types of things, they sound obvious as I'm giving you these examples right now. It sounds obvious. Oh yeah, I could see where it might not be Tim. But in the humanities portion of the business, because we have so many biases, oh, I don't like that guy, I like this guy, these types of things, we are prone to make mistakes in our decision making. And so you want to dig in really deep and ask yourself, do you really have strong evidence of causation before you start changing things? You don't want to change something that's not broken. If things are going well and you change the wrong thing, in science, you want to only manipulate one, you have your control, and then you want to manipulate one experimental factor at a time, one condition at a time, so that you can know what it is that's working. You could think of a lot of examples like that. So, let's go over to marketing for a moment here. In marketing, you invest in a new form of advertising, or you decide on some new keywords, and all of a sudden your sales are increased, and you've experienced some better conversions or whatever. Once again, those are important observations to make. You've got to make the observation, record it, and then you have to dig deeper and understand, are there any other factors that could be the cause of the effect that you're observing? And is it just a correlation? Is there only a relationship here that you're noticing that's completely coincidental? There can be relationships between things that aren't causative. We understand that. And so in business, make sure that you dig deeper before you make any quick decisions to change anything that could have undesirable impact. So for any of this to have practical meaning in your business, you have to have some sort of performance metric. And we talk about report cards and, of course, your financial statements. You've got to visit those at least monthly and make observations and be tracking the performance of your various departments, your various people, and those performance metrics that most matter, such as revenue and expenses, profitability, that kind of thing. That's where it all starts. If you don't have any way of measuring things and monitoring things, then these things are going to fly under the radar to begin with. But then let's say you're doing that as a best practice and you're starting to observe. That's great. You're on the right track. But now that you've made some observations, what you have to do is ask yourself, is this simply a correlation, or is there some causation there? And that requires digging deeper. So in any number of the examples that you can think of, many people throughout the years, even in really large, well-run companies, have lost their jobs due to something that maybe have only been a correlation, some coincidental conditions that existed that made a person look bad. And in fact, there could have been something completely different, or there was something completely different. And so you want to look at all the various conditions that are affecting, and you have to hypothesize. You have to sort of theorize what is going on in the market, what's going on with your competition. There may be data points that you're ignorant to, that you just don't know. And it pays to take the time to look and try to gain that intelligence and explore deeper before you make any decisions that could have an adverse effect on your business. With respect to marketing, the notion of A/B testing is very popular, and it's a great way to work around this kind of thing, where you can just let the market sort of organically give you feedback by putting out two conditions, sort of the control and the experimental condition. So you may have a web page that is organized one way with a particular font or image, or your web form is different on this page. That's the A. And then in the B, it's the other way. So it's the control. You're going to keep the B the same while you manipulate A, and then you continue to adjust while you're getting favorable conversions and favorable results. And you can test that way. That's more scientific, and that's great for marketing, because there is so much hit and miss with marketing, and it's such a danger. There's so much risk involved in wasting money when you're guessing. You want to make good decisions. We've talked about those various constituents that go into good decision making. So maybe review those again, but really wrap your head around this idea of causation and correlation, and check your ego and check your emotions at the door when you're making decisions regarding your business, because you might be in a bad mood. You might really have one of those biases that I referred to, where there's a personality conflict. Something may be rubbing you the wrong way. There could be something completely different in your life that's causing you stress. And then you make a decision in your business based on maybe limited information. Somebody gives you some feedback. You didn't take the time to explore it in depth, or you observe something on a financial statement, on a report card, and you mistakenly conclude that it is caused by condition A, B, or C, when in fact, there's maybe just a strictly coincidental relationship between those two things. All right. So that is the difference between causation and correlation. And I really encourage you to look strongly within your various departments, within your business, to determine, are you making decisions assuming that there's something causative in nature? And if you keep making those decisions, a good indication is when you make a decision and it didn't have the desired outcome, you may have made the wrong decision. And hopefully you didn't make the type of the decision that you can't go back on. And so it's not critical if you did make a poor decision, and you can just reverse it. But you have to make sure you check your ego again and say, I was wrong. I made the wrong decision. I have to go back. And you may have to put your tail between your legs and be humble with your team and say, we thought it was because of this, but it would indicate, it seems now we've made that change. We did not experience the improvement that we would have predicted. And so we think we've analyzed a little bit more, and we think we made a mistake. It may have been coincidental. It may have been something else. And that's okay. We're all human, and we make mistakes in business. When you recognize you've made a mistake, reverse it. Or if the conditions have changed, reverse it as well. But it's better if you could be proactive in doing that analysis and digging deep. And take the time to do that. You're in management. You own the business, whatever the case may be. It's incumbent upon you. You owe it to yourself, to the other stakeholders in your business, to take the time to make these good decisions. And part of that will be understanding that correlation does not equal causation. But we'll leave it at that for today. I hope you got something out of this, and maybe you have thought of something in your business, that a decision you made, some sort of conclusion you made, an observation of a particular condition, and you've started to think, I don't have strong evidence that that's causation. And you can forgive yourself for that, because some of the greatest scientists and the most impactful scientific decisions were in fact based on correlation, not causation, and could do a lot of harm throughout the world. So you may have made some of those decisions in your business. Almost undoubtedly you have. I'd like to hear about them. Put them in the comments. We need to learn from one another. Perpetual refinement.